I never planned on becoming a content creator, but here we are years later, and I've built an audience of over 500,000 people across several social media platforms. It wasn't always like that. Like I said, didn't plan on becoming a content creator. That wasn't what I was intending to do, even from the beginning. But to give you a little bit of background on me, I served a religious mission for the church that I am a part of, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I left when I was freshly 18 years old, and I was called to serve in Brazil. I had never been outside the country before this. I had never learned a language. I had never even started learning a language at this point. And I was shipped off to Brazil to learn the Portuguese language and be a part of their culture and preach the gospel to the people of Brazil. While I was on my mission, I met many Brazilians, made close friends, lifetime friends that I consider some of my closest friends to this day. And while I was on my mission, I heard repeatedly from the members of the church in Brazil, the friends that I was making, that they had made friends with other missionaries who came before me, and they all went home and lost contact with them almost immediately. They never heard from them again, and it made them really sad. And while I was on my mission, I vowed that, like I'm sure many missionaries do, if you've ever served a mission or know missionaries of the church, we all tell ourselves, I'm not going to be like that. When I get home, I am going to stay in touch with everybody that I've met. I'm going to keep practicing the language, whatever that may be. I got home from my mission, and like I'm sure many of the other missionaries that stopped communicating or stopped talking to those members, I got really busy, and life got busy. I got started in school. I realized that keeping that line of communication open was going to be a lot harder than I had previously anticipated. So when I got home from my mission, I went back to posting on Instagram, talking about my experience a little bit in Brazil, and then I just started posting regular updates of what was happening in my life. Several of my friends in Brazil had followed that account while I was there. Obviously, I wasn't posting while I was in Brazil, but when I got home, was posting, and these friends of mine that I had made in Brazil started asking me, hey, I want to know what you're up to. I want to see what you're doing in life. You should post this stuff in Portuguese. Well, I thought that was not the greatest idea, but I did have the thought, well, maybe this is an opportunity for me to practice my Portuguese. Something that I was really afraid of was losing my ability to speak Portuguese. So I thought, okay, I'll go ahead and start posting in Portuguese just to maintain my Portuguese, and then hey, kill two birds with one stone. I can also keep some communication with those people. They can see what I'm up to and so forth. So I started an account on Instagram, and I started an account on TikTok. And right as I got started, I heard several of my Brazilian friends say, hey, you taught a few English classes while you were here on Brazil. We did that as like a volunteer service to meet new people. So I had taught English classes throughout the majority of the 2 years that I was in Brazil. And I thought, okay, I'm no professional, but I can give a few tips here and there. After all, I did grow up speaking English. And I've also experienced learning a language myself now that I was proficient in the Portuguese language. I started with a few tips on how to learn English, a few phrases, a few words. And really, that's how it started. I didn't see immediate growth. I wasn't an overnight success by any means, but I would just pick up my phone, no flashy edits, no overly curated content, and I would just look at my camera and I would record. That's when I started to see a little bit of an uptick in my views and that dopamine hit. I got excited. People are seeing my content. It motivated me to post a little bit more. And then I started to come across accounts that were teaching how to grow on social media. And after I started to apply the things that I was learning from other people who were teaching how to grow on social media, I started to see more growth, and I followed that pattern for months, and eventually I was seeing really great success. I hit an inflection point when one day just a matter of being consistent and showing up. I picked up my phone. I recorded a 15-second video. I honestly didn't want to record that day. I picked up my phone, said something about a piece of culture that I really enjoyed about Brazil that differs greatly from the United States, and I hit post. That video went mega viral. I got millions of views across multiple platforms, and it skyrocketed my growth into the hundreds of thousands of followers from one video. Every time I would refresh, I would see more and more followers. And to think, before that, I wasn't even going to post that day. It taught me a really valuable lesson in content creation that what matters most is showing up. And with all of this new excitement and energy in creating content, I was able to carry myself into creating more and more content. I started posting more on YouTube. I was doing YouTube Shorts specifically. And along the way, I was able to get connected with other content creators in a similar niche, other Americans that were making content specifically focused to Brazilians. And one of them said, "Hey, I'm doing a live for this company that I work for. You should come over and participate in it. I think you'd be a good personality for what we're doing." So I jumped in on the live with him. It was super casual, but really fun. I thought it was a good time. It was good to hang out and, again, continue to practice my Portuguese. And afterward, he said, "Hey, the company that I work for really liked your vibe. They liked what you do. They like your content, and they would like to connect with you." A few weeks later, after a couple meetings with them, I was offered round trip tickets to Brazil with 5 nights paid in a really nice hotel at the time, I think it was southern Brazil, an area of Brazil that I hadn't been to. And I could not believe what was happening. I knew that there were opportunities to make money. I knew that there were opportunities to connect with people around the world through creating content, but never in a million years would I have imagined that I was going to have an opportunity to go back to Brazil on somebody else's dime simply because I hit post a number of times. And I went to Brazil. I worked with some of the largest creators in Brazil. I worked for an incredible company, a company that now does over 500 million reais, the Brazilian currency. And I was able to network. I was able to visit the headquarters of TikTok, the headquarters of Meta, Instagram, Facebook in Sao Paulo, the South American headquarters for those companies. And it was life-changing. It has been life-changing. Time has now passed. My wife and I have since had a baby. I obviously made some money doing these deals with these companies in Brazil, but not enough to sustain a stable lifestyle for my family and I. So ultimately, I stopped posting, but I never lost that drive and that energy that I got from creating content. And I especially love to see other people who create content and just absolutely crush it online. It's a hobby of mine to learn about other successful creators and what they're building. I still am current. I still study frequently, how to grow on social media, what other people are doing. I love to see what trends are happening in the industry. I love to see new creators popping up and popping off. I love to learn about these things, and that's really why I'm here. That's why I decided to start this podcast, because I want to inspire somebody else who, like me, maybe doesn't have a ton of direction or didn't have a ton of direction, and now they've stumbled into the social media space and recognized that there's an opportunity here. I think that in 2025, now almost 2026, we're all aware of the fact that there's money to be made in this industry, and it is possible to make a real income, a real living by creating content, because I myself have earned that income. While I was in Brazil, I was getting paid for the work that I was doing, not just paid to go there and paid to stay there. I was also getting paid for the content that I was creating. I was receiving content schedules that I was putting out and creating Facebook ads and different things that they used. They used my name, image, and likeness, and therefore I was paid for that. While I was in Brazil, at one of our events, we had a private masseuse that at any moment we could go back and get a massage with them. I'm telling you, it was shocking. It was life-changing to recognize what could come of posting content. And really, that's what I want to do here. I want to highlight others' stories. I want to talk about other successful creators. I want to talk about social media masters and what they've done to create the life of their dreams. And I hope in doing so, you can find some inspiration for yourself, some motivation. You can dig deep like I am right now in getting out here and creating this podcast. And you can put some content out there that might just change your life. Like I said, the video that really changed everything for me was a matter of 15 seconds just showing up. Sometimes that's all it takes with social media. So if you're listening to this, I'm excited to have you. I would encourage you to, if you're feeling inspired to create content, create that first piece of content. You have no idea where that may take you. You might just end up getting a private massage in a very nice place in Brazil. Thanks so much for joining, and this is Social Media Masters.